It is time. It's time to stop hiding, folks. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together to share their testimony. It's time to inspire hope and to join our brothers and sisters as we answer the call. It is time to wake up the lions. And I have an absolute lion with me today who is doing some serious work in his name. I cannot wait for you to hear about this. Incredibly unique and incredibly inspiring. And I hope that this movement takes off and really, really picks up speed across the country because what we're looking at is just really unique and really wonderful. Please welcome to the show the CEO and founder of Tithe Lending and the founder of Tithe Foundation, not for profit, which we're going to hear all about. He's also the author of two books, one called Firm Foundations, and the other one called The Time to Return, which we're going to get to hear about today as well. Please welcome to the show, Mark Greaves. Mark, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. And Rory, thanks for having me on. I think this show is really cool. You talk about what I'm doing is unique, and I think what you're doing is also extremely unique. But yeah, the more guys and gals that we can get on to tell their story and how they're honoring God through their work, and whether it's marketplace or nonprofit, what have you, the more courage we can give to others to kind of jump into the movement that's taking place. So thank you for having me on. I'm really pumped to be here.
Oh, I appreciate it very much. Now, I named a bunch of things that we can definitely get into, and I can't wait to hear about all of them. Honestly, as we get rolling, tell everybody who is Mark Greaves. What are you about? How has God influenced your life, and kind of set you on the path to where you are today?
You sure? That's an open-ended question, man, and I can talk. So you sure you want to just throw it out there for me?
Who is
Who
Mark
am I?
Greaves? Right. Besides being an Ohio State fan, and I still let him on the show.
Yeah, we discovered that way too late, or else this whole thing might have never taken place. But
Exactly.
yeah, I'll give you just a 30-second rundown on me. It's so I'm a child of God first and foremost, lover and follower of Jesus. So that's my main identity, and I take that in every room that I'm in, whether it's in business, ministry, or any other kind of work. So that's it. But I'd be nothing without my wife Danielle. I mean, she's the love of my life. We've been married now 17 years, been together since we were teenagers. So she's been behind everything that I've done this whole way through. Father of two, got two boys, 11 and 9, Grayson and Frankie. And then, yeah, man, I mean, what I do today is I try to help folks through the marketplace. I mean, I run a couple of companies, and then obviously our Tithe Foundation, our nonprofit arm. But I try to help people be an influence and a light for Jesus in and through their work, however he's gifted them, wherever he's got them, what he's called them to do. But making sure that that's our number one priority is honoring God with what we've done and the gifts that he's given us, and then trying to go out and just make a difference for those in need and lend a helping hand where it's needed.
Love that, love that, and to that end, these companies are incredibly unique. They really are with the way you have run them. Um, Tell us about. I mean, I don't know if you want to start with Tithe Lending, because I think that
Yeah.
came first, right?
Yeah, I can tell you like how Tide Lending came to be wasn't because it was just right out of the gate. I had an idea to honor God with working, and I just thought the mortgage industry was ripe for him to enter. It was That's not really how it went. So that's what we do is we are a mortgage lender, residential home loan origination, purchases, refinance, home equity lines, anything that you need that has to do with residential finance. That's something I've been doing now for 20 years, and my co-founder Brian at Tithe Lending has been doing it for 30. I always kind of poke fun at him and throw that out there so everyone knows he's older than I am. But we were in just the secular mortgage world for the majority of our careers, and we got really good at it. So I was always front end, sales, marketing, leadership development, contact centers, just leads, online business generation. That's kind of like my specialty. Brian was our COO at our former company, so it's all the boring stuff I don't want to do. It's processing, underwriting, QC, audits, all that kind of stuff, just licensing, those types of things. So we kind of were the yin yang of our business. And we were at a large national mortgage lender where I was president. He was basically our COO running all of our back end. And that went really well. People there were great. Our bosses were great. Our owners were great. But over time, as the company grew, I think we peaked out somewhere around 3,000 employees, sometime in maybe 2021, 2022, that time frame. Um, there was just a lot of money being made. There was a lot of things going on. From the outside looking in, people probably thought that it was just up and to the right. We were like on top of the mountain. internally I wasn't. So what had happened throughout COVID was my faith in Jesus was just growing exponentially, because throughout that time I was just seeking truth, dove really hard into our church, volunteering. I kind of got saved on my couch, actually. Prior to the pandemic, I wasn't paying attention to Jesus. I knew about him. I'd gone to Catholic school and church and things like that. My heart wasn't all in for him throughout every aspect of my life. And we started watching a church service on our couch during COVID when everything was shut down. And it's like the Holy Spirit jumped out of that TV and into my heart. It's just like, what are you doing?
Wow.
And just woke me up. And it's funny that's the name of your show, but it did. I literally had eyes opened at that point. It was like I've been living for all the wrong stuff, and my lack of fulfillment and meaning, and all these achievements and things that we're accomplishing at work. I couldn't really pinpoint it. And I was like, because it's all directed back to me. I'm doing this for myself. I'm not honoring God with it. I'm not doing anything fulfilling. I'm not impacting eternity. It's all just temporary stuff. So for the next couple of years, I kept on doing that, but the level of discontent just continued to grow. So one day I was journaling and I was just like, well, what would a mortgage company look like if we just ran this for Jesus? If we just turned it over to him and said, hey, you're in charge. This is for you. Now, how do you want to work through it? And what Jesus said was his number one and number two commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So that's our mission statement at Tithe Lending, is to honor God with the work and to love our neighbor with the proceeds. So we did our best to adapt that into a business mission statement. And our tactics, it's like, all right, well, how are we going to do that?
Right.
This happened maybe a month or two later. I'm reading and I'm like, well, God gave you this financial framework called the tithe on how to honor him with your finances and your increase. So that's what we'll do. And then we're not very creative. So we just named it that. We named it Tithe Lending. And so we've done that since day one. We tithe 10% of the revenue, not the profit. So before we pay employees or taxes or any expenses, that comes in. So $10 comes in, dollar goes out.
Wow.
So that was hard to do because mortgage companies don't typically have a 10+% profit margin. It's pretty thin business,
Sure.
but we decided we were going to go for it. So last year that equaled about 2/3 of the profits. So even though we're giving the first 10%, and even though we've been in a pretty tough mortgage environment for the last couple of years, we've remained profitable. So God has been able to orchestrate this thing. He's been super faithful. Business channels exist that maybe shouldn't. Referrals come that we didn't ask for. Employees, every one of our employees, instead of being heavily recruited, has come to us to be a part of the team. The mission and the pure motive of it is very, very attractive to certain customers and employees and things. So it's really worked out. And when we look at just the level of fulfillment and meaning that we get out of our work now, it's totally changed because
Wow.
yeah, well, things have been tough. My employees know that, like, hey, my work and my efforts are contribute to these homeless people get to eat because of our business. These folks get to go to Christian education schools because of our business. Children are being rescued out of sex trafficking because of our business. We're helping nonprofits revamp the foster system because of our business. I mean, you name it. We've given out so many grants now over the last couple of years that when the going gets tough, we know why we're doing it. So
Nice.
the mission is it leads everything that we do. But that's kind of the story of how it got started.
I love that, and I'm fascinated by the concept. You have the not-for-profit also, the Tithe Foundation, and so I
Yeah.
guess I'm curious right off the bat. Does the money come from Tithe Lending and go like straight to these different causes? Does it go into the foundation now and then how do you work the two together?
Yeah. Yeah, I can give you a little bit of a background on how that evolved. So at first,
Yeah.
Tithe Foundation was really born because we needed a place to park the 10% donations from Tithe Lending. We're like, all right, well, where are we going to put this in a fund? So as it
Right.
accumulates, we can send it to somewhere once it reaches a meaningful number.
Right.
For mortgage, that's pretty easy to do. Typical mortgage is 6 to 10, $12,000 in revenue. So every mortgage we do spends off give or take about $1,000 in charitable donations. So it
Okay.
doesn't take a lot of those to really start growing that number. Over time, what started to happen was other businesses saw what we were doing and they saw our vetting process, the way that we would look for specific opportunities to go fuel and fund existing nonprofits. Because what we didn't want to start was a new nonprofit cause. There's already so many nonprofits that are doing great things and they need fuel. There's not a need to go spin up another competing nonprofit in a certain space. The ones that are there are always organized. They've got not always, but a lot of times they're very organized. They have a mission that's laid out. They know who they're going to serve. They need fuel to go make that happen. So Tithe Foundation is not its own separate nonprofit. What we are is we are a fund that pools and then goes and fuels existing nonprofits. Specifically, we fund local church, Christian education, homeless, and then youth and family outreach. So those are the four pillars that we've got. We started having other businesses come to us and say, "Hey, your vetting process is solid." A lot of them were small businesses where they're saying, "Hey, our charitable budget's maybe 4 or 5 grand a year by itself. We don't know what cause we can go tackle, and we don't want to just throw it over the fence blindly and not know if it does anything. Can we just partner with you guys and go start, helping take down some of these bigger issues?" Well, today we have 40 businesses now that are participating in this. So once a quarter, we get together, we identify the opportunities for funding, and then we vote on those distributions, and the grants go out the next day. So that's kind of how it works. So yes,
Man.
Tithe Lending's tithe does go into the Tithe Foundation.
Yeah.
And then 4 times a year, we hand out large grants. So in the last 2 years, to give you an example, we've handed out over $500,000 just in the last 24 months as a small grouping of businesses. But those $500,000 is being directed specifically to go take down big needs. So 40,000 here, 30,000 here, 25,000 there, and we partner with our nonprofit groups around town, and we make it pretty specific. So it's not just like a random donation to American Cancer Society or something, and it's just going to some research that you'll never know or see. Instead of that, it'll go to hire an area director for a specific purpose in maybe a market that desperately needs it, or it'll go to like starting a jobs program for a homeless community specifically, or it'll buy a bus for a youth and family outreach center, or it'll help build X number of beds for families that don't have beds through a different nonprofit. So we'll go tackle specific causes together. That's how it
Wow.
works.
Okay, that's interesting too. Do you try to keep it all local in the local community? Is that kind of how you operate from inside out?
Yep, we do.
Okay.
So as it launches and as we spread further, so if we go launch in a new market or a new city, businesses from that community will stay local. So we kind of had to pick that piece out of it. So we don't do global outreach. So we've been hit up for grants for, for example, one building wells in Africa. Awesome nonprofit. They're doing great stuff. But we kind of had to start making some decisions on what do we really want to go fuel and fund? We can't be everything. So local was one of the main pieces of that. So as Tithe Foundation grows, businesses that join from their local market will be voting on distributions that go to nonprofits in their local market. And I think that that's where a lot of the heart change takes place. Because instead of it just being about the money, one thing that we wanted to do is make it about the heart. And how you do that is be able to see face to face who it's affecting. So a lot of the nonprofits that we fuel, our businesses will adopt, and then they'll go volunteer in those facilities. So there's something really cool about when you make a grant or a donation to a specific nonprofit, and then you can take your employees to that place and volunteer and help see who's the actual person that this money's affecting. That's where it changes your heart. That's where it really gets to people and makes it that meaning and fulfillment come out, come alive. Writing checks
Wow.
doesn't do that. Checks are needed, but that doesn't change. The heart change comes when you see the people that it's actually influencing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, growing this and expanding it, outside of your area is something that's on the horizon.
Likely, yeah. So
Yeah.
as Tithe Lending moves into more states and markets, we want to make sure that the loans and the mortgages that are completed in those markets go back into nonprofits in those areas, because that'll help our customers attach to the mission. I mean, we like referrals. They're the best kind of business.
Sure.
So if I do a loan in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the money is directed to a nonprofit here in Columbus, Ohio, that client, that realtor partner, any of the vendors that are involved in those transactions, they might think it's cool that a piece of their mortgage actually went to helping somebody in need, but it's even better when it's going to help somebody in need in their own community, in their
Right.
backyard. That's what gets them on fire for the mission. That's what makes this thing spread. That's what the light of Jesus can then carry in it through their home and to their neighbors and friends. And I'm a firm believer that those folks should do business with Tithe Lending, because we want to go help more people in need. We want to share the love of God as far and wide as we can do it, as opposed to going and just using a random bank or lender.
Right.
So yeah, there's a bigger mission behind why we do what we do. We have to do the mortgage piece really well, or else we don't exist.
Right.
Great mission, but we stink at mortgage. Nobody uses us, right? So
Right.
we're going to be really good at the mortgage part, but the mission is what can carry the love of God out in and through the community.
I love that. The concept of combining your faith and your work. Yeah, and you mentioned this on your website, like right off the bat. As soon as I opened it up, there it was.
Yeah.
That has, prior to now, that's been almost a revolutionary call. It's
Mhm.
been something that people are like, oh, well, you can't do that because there's all this separation of church and state, and you're not allowed to talk about politics, sex, or religion, right, with anybody.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's how we were raised and how the world was. Um, that seems incredibly cutting edge today, even with all the changes that are happening, even with the awakening, that seems to be going on, around the world
Yeah.
and in our country. What made you say that, though? Say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, in effect, combine faith
Yeah.
and work. I mean, did that all come from the couch that day?
Over time, yeah, it did. I mean, it kind of did. I mean, that day lit me up so hot because I don't know. You probably see behind me this little guy right here.
Yeah.
I track my weeks. I've done this for a long time. So if you live to be 80, you got 4,160 weeks to live, right? So each one of the dots that's colored in there is a dot that's checked off the list of like, all right, hey, if I live to be an old man, I know for sure this is how many days I have to live. And the Bible tells us, teach us to number your days so you can gain a heart of wisdom. So I actually number my days. And I've done that for a long time, even before I was combining faith and work, because I wanted to make sure that what I was doing that week was purposeful. I didn't want to waste time. So I was like, hey, how can I move the needle? I'm trying to be intentional with my life. For whatever reason, I guess God needed to hit me with a 2x4 right in the nose to realize, like, hey, your life is a gift from me. I'm the giver. So like your entire job here is to honor me and glorify me with it. I've given you specific gifts, resources, network, and this gift of time that's your constraint. You don't know how much of it you're going to get. It woke me up. So I was like, okay, how do I shift this focus and purpose, not just to go move the needle, grow businesses, make money, do things, as opposed to just sitting around playing video games or something? How do I take that and channel it for God? And once you start thinking that way, it just makes so much more sense to talk about him, to glorify him. I give this example a lot. Um, how can I give this example the best way possible? Um, let me think through this.
Take your time, really and truly, because it sounds like it's going to be a great example. I'm here for
No, but it's
it.
I love this question, and the reason I love it, my light just went off. It distracted me. The reason I love the question, though, is because for the majority of my life, I wasn't focused on what God's purposes were, and I wasn't thinking about leaning in and trying to blend secular anything with sacred anything. Um, but when you really get down to it, at the end of the day, you're not going to be remembered. Your name won't be remembered. I ask this example to people all the time when they are scared to do it and they're scared to step out. I say, hey, what's the name of your great grandpa? And some of them know that. I say, okay, do you know the name of your great great grandpa, which is your grandpa's grandfather? Most people can't name their names. And I'm like, okay, so if you can't even remember his name, much less what he cared about, what he was worried about, what his biggest accomplishes were, what his biggest fears were, we don't even know their name. All of our names are going to be forgotten. Our life is not going to be really that remarkable. We were likely to be very unremembered. But the name that will last forever is Jesus. So you're better off proclaiming his name. And when you go out into the marketplace, whether you go out into your family, like whatever it is that you have to tackle that 24 hours, is do it for him because that will last forever. You start to transfer some of your efforts from this temporary world into eternity when you do it that way. And once you start unlocking this in your head, it makes it a lot easier to go out and think, okay, what do I do for a living? Am I a barber? Am I a plumber? Am I somebody that's in IT? Do I do mortgages? What would it look like to glorify God through this work? Because we still live in the world. So we have this temporary stuff to do. Like things need to continue to move forwards. But what would it look like to glorify him in it? How would I work differently? Maybe there's some things that I would bring up every now and then. If I have a coworker who's in need, like why not pray for that person? If I have somebody who's struggling, and because this happens all the time at the water cooler or getting coffee, if I know someone's struggling, why not invite them to church? Why not? I mean, if you get something out of it and you go to your local church and you're worshiping alongside other believers, and everybody's got issues and problems that they're dealing with. But for that period of time, we can set it all down and we can worship God and give glory and thanks to God. Why not invite that person to come do that? There's just stuff like this all over the place. It doesn't have to be profound, starting companies and tithing tons of money out of your business. I mean, you don't have to do all this stuff to glorify God with what's in front of you that day. But I think I just had a big rambling thought there. I recognize that, but understanding that time is not unlimited. We don't have forever to go live for God. We're going to live, if we make it to heaven, we're going to have forever to live with Him. But this little temporary life right now is the opportunity that we have to live for Him. And we don't have forever to go get that done.
Yeah.
So,
I love this because they're such foundational points that people just don't think of. We live our lives. We don't think about the fact that, every week that goes by is a week that is gone.
mhm.
It's out of our
Yeah.
inventory, so to speak, when you look at it from a business standpoint. And I love the example. As soon as you said that, I went, wait, what's my great grandfather's name? I happen to know it, but I'm sure my children don't know my grandfather's name.
Hmm.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
have no idea. They never got to meet him. He passed before they were born. They would never be able to pick it out of a hat. That is such a down to earth, real life, sort of like down in the dirt example
Hmm.
of proof of the point. So yeah, it was worth waiting for that example. I appreciate
Sorry
you
about that.
throwing it out. It was
Yeah, it
great.
was a rambling answer, man. I have a tendency to like get going and then my thoughts string together like that. So it's just
No, I love it. The Let me ask you about the books real quick. The first
yeah,
one that came out was The Firm Foundations, and
yeah,
you kind of downplayed that, when I asked you about it beforehand. But brother, you still wrote a book. I mean, not everybody does that. So what was that book for?
yeah. Firm Foundations is basically it's a leadership manual, like almost like a little field guide. So it takes you through. So I've led a lot of teams over the last 20 years and was a part of teams even before that, whether it's college sports or being the oldest of six kids. I feel like I was a team captain of kids. It's always been in me, right?
Right.
Um, so it really just breaks down like if you're a leader leading teams, or especially if you're a new leader and you need like a roadmap on how do I do this correctly on a foundational building block level. What do I do tactically? Like, I don't need another book that's like big, giant macro concepts. I need to know tactics. Like, what do I need to do? So it starts with building trust. So, how do I build real, actual trust with my team? Personal trust from within, situational trust, ethical trust, like the real, actual trust I need to build in order to lead this team forward. Out of trust, and then it comes accountability. You're not going to be able to hold your team accountable unless they trust you. So accountability steps, because that's a buzzword. It's like, how do you hold your team accountable? Do you fire people when they mess up? Do you yell at them? How do you reward them? How do you build accountability into that team structure once that trust exists? And there's real tactical ways to do that. Then it builds off that into culture. Culture is a way of life. If you want to have a culture of trust and accountability, how do you do that? How do you actually make that happen? Where culture is not, having fun and going to happy hour. It's literally trust and accountability as a way of life within your team. We break down communication, team communication, individual one-on-one communication, and the book kind of winds up with how do you handle adversity? Because even the best leader that has trust, accountability, culture, communication, all those points are down, you're still going to have stuff thrown at you, whether it's an external thing, an internal thing, a cultural thing. There's events that happen. Could be legislative, who knows? There's lots of things that happen that even if you're doing everything right, adversity's coming your way as a leader. So, how do you actually handle adversity? And there's a checklist, there's an order to follow to go find an opportunity for action. How do you go stay on offense through an adversity moment versus just cuddling up in a corner and playing defense? So, the book is like a tactical field guide to leadership.
Nice. Nice. All right. So that was the first book that came out. Now, is that
Yeah.
available just on the website or is it available elsewhere?
It's on Amazon.
It's on
Yeah.
Amazon too. Okay.
Yep.
Good deal. And then you just released one. I think you said it on September 9th.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting book release because book was published and came out on the 9th. Available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's a couple of places to get it, but it's obviously the 10th was the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Right.
So we haven't done a whole heck of a lot of publicity around it because our publisher and I were like, hey, I don't really feel comfortable promoting something on the day of like what's going on around the country. So
For
we
sure.
haven't done a lot of promotion. But even without the promotion, I looked the other day. It was number 4 on the Amazon new release for Christian stewardship and Christian lifestyle. So it's actually been a pretty good release so far, even though we haven't told anybody about
That's
it. People are
great.
picking it up.
That is
Yeah,
great.
no, it's been
Yeah.
good.
Wow.
But it's a time to return is on this concept of the tithe and the tests that are before us in this life. We kind of lay out some of the main tests in the Bible. And it's funny how this number 10 keeps coming up, whether it's the 10 plagues, the 10 commandments. Obviously, tithe is 10th, the 10 virgins, the 10 spies that came back out of the promised land that were too afraid to enter and take the promise. Only Caleb and Joshua were the ones with the courage. This number 10 comes up a lot around testing in the Bible. So we go through what those tests are, whether it's tests of pride or tests of humility, gratitude, you name it. They're all basically tests of the heart. And will we align our heart with God or won't we? And how this concept of tithing can help us pass these tests. The ways that if we ingrain this into our life, there's a reason why our money and our produce and our increase here have such a grip on the human heart. There's a reason why Jesus talks about it so much while he's here. He didn't say you can't serve two masters, God and whatever your inclination is. He said God and money for a reason. He knows that money has such a grip on us here because it's where we can place a false sense of security. So by releasing that and giving God our best and giving him the first 10%, partnering with the creator of the universe and letting him infiltrate every aspect of us, by really turning it over in our finances, how does that help us pass all these other tests that are before us? So that's kind of what the book outlines. And we also kind of go through at the end, if Christians in America, just Christians in America, this is crazy, would return to this, if we would do it, $161 billion a year would be unleashed into the kingdom if just American Christians return to the tithe.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? If you
Yes.
go through what household income is in America, and then you look at the percentage of households who basically self identify as Christians, just those households, 161 billion. I mean, Earth would look way more like heaven if we would just let God, if we would just give him what is his, if we would return to him what is his,
Yeah.
and then let him use it to go bless us. Our country would look dramatically different.
My goodness.
Pretty crazy.
The number's staggering,
It is
when you
staggering.
think about it. My, wow.
I mean, we could end no veteran would go without housing. There would be no shortage of food. The hunger in our country would just cease to exist. Christian schools would just be crazy. We'd have so many youth centers around town. I mean, we could completely solve the clean water issue worldwide in 1 year of faithful tithing. It's like just the way that Earth would look if we truly partnered with the Creator.
Right.
It would look way more like His intention originally. But because we have all this focus directed on ourselves, and people are so unwilling to release it, this was an
Right.
interesting stat. Only 4% of American Christian households actually tithe. 96% do not. Isn't
Wow.
that crazy? And the average American household gives $895 a year. Is a average charitable donation.
Okay.
So an average giving for Christian households is around 2.4%. To put it in perspective, in the Great Depression, it was 3.3% when resources were far scarcer than they are today.
Right.
Um, so when we look at where are we today and where would we be if we returned to faithful tithing, it's a gap that it seems like it's a big gap to fill. But if we were willing to fill it, the transformation that would take place not only around the world, but also inside the human heart and our attachment and our alignment with the Creator,
Yeah.
things would just look so much different in our world.
My goodness. I can't even imagine, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it's such a huge number and the
Yeah.
possibilities are so endless as you sit here and just think about it even for a moment. But it's a great goal to have.
Yeah.
It's a
I
great goal
agree.
to
I
have.
agree.
I love
I
it.
mean, I'm living proof that, um, somebody who wasn't doing it before, I wasn't. I can't sit here and like be high and mighty telling everybody like, oh, I've always done this. You need to do it too. I wasn't doing it either. And I was finding endless unfulfillment and meaninglessness in the accomplishments that I was having in this temporary world. Then all of a sudden, I get on fire for Jesus. I turn over to tithing. I start doing this with our company, and the amount of joy and energy and love and peace that I feel because I've allowed God to just infuse Himself into all the things that I'm doing, and I get to see the fruit of it every day with the influence and the impact in the lives of people who need it that we're having for Jesus. This isn't like Mark Greaves walking around putting my influence on everything. This is the love of Christ that is just flowing through us and getting to the people who need it most. It's so much more fun and rewarding. The reason I wrote the book isn't because I wanted to like school people on knowing stuff about the Bible. It's because I want them to have this gift that God gave me and woke me up, and I get to go see Him moving through my actions and just through my life by partnering with Him and like truly turning your heart over to Him. I want that for other people.
Yeah.
So
Amen,
it's
brother. Wow.
I want that for their life. Yeah.
No, I love the mission. I really do. I mean, this is amazing. Now, did you come up with this idea all on your own? I mean, did it really just sort of come from God? I mean, boom, here's this idea. Was there a talk somewhere else? How did it all start at that point?
Yeah, no, how it came, it kind of was from God, but it took a couple of years. I mean, it's just a lot of writing. So I do journal fairly often. So after I read, I'll pray, I'll think, I'll write. And it was through a lot of the writing where it became clear, which I would encourage. But I used to think journaling was weird, up until just a few years ago.
Right.
And I was like, who has time to sit down and write? But there's something magical that happens when you put pen to paper and actually, instead of type, like actually handwrite something because your brain has to slow down. I might know where I'm going when I start that page out. I might have like the first couple of sentences in my mind, but there's just no way that I'll know what I'm going to be writing by the time I get to the end of the page. It's impossible. I can't think in pages or paragraphs. I can think in words, and then more specifically while I'm writing in letters. So it slows the thinking down. And by the time I get done with a journal entry, sometimes I'm in a completely different place than I thought I would go. So for me personally, God speaks to me through that, because it slows down just all the thoughts that are buzzing through my head. And over time through writing, that's what hit me with the question I asked earlier in this episode was, what would it look like to start a mortgage company for Jesus? That came through a journal session. I didn't start off with that question, but I was writing about what it is I do today, kind of where I wanted to take my life, some of the things I was processing through on how I was going to do that or where I was going to do that. And then that question came out on paper. And that's what started me down this trail of like, well, what would that look like? That's where the mission statement came from. That's where the name came from. That's where the practice that we do this through came from. So it's just
Hmm.
from a few writing sessions, man. That's it.
One of the reasons that I love asking that question to people is because we always get an answer that fits what I've learned. And God meets us where we are in order to, tell us what we need to do,
Yeah.
in order to give us our calling. And you're clearly a writer and you're writing, and he comes to you
Yeah.
through your writing and says, "Hey, what would this look like?" And the next thing you know, you're writing this down. And with
Yeah.
me, you asked me where the podcast came from in our pre-interview. I was talking to my wife about everybody coming on my podcast. And he hit me right in the middle of me talking, and it ended up talking to myself. And here it is. I was doing a solo episode about something like this. And in the middle of the episode, I ended up having to stop and junk the whole episode because it all just hit me while I was talking. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. It's kind of weird how he made us all pretty specific.
Hmm.
And a
Yeah,
lot of times we don't need to look far to hear his voice. He's right there. And usually he's right there in and through the very thing he created you to do.
right.
And you
Yeah.
just got to slow down just for a second and just pay attention to him
Yep.
because it's not really that profound. It's just a lot of times, the common sense stuff, um, is the stuff that's like sitting right in front of our face. And for some reason, we just can't see it. But
Yeah. You have to
yeah,
want to
he
see it.
gets,
Right.
yeah, I agree.
100%. Let me ask you this too, because one thing we talk about a lot in this program is spiritual warfare and how that impacts,
Hmm.
people. I'm curious with blending these, work, professional life, faith, talking about tithing, from a business standpoint. Have you run into resistance, on this idea, or any, hate, so to speak, that has gotten in your way?
Well, hmm, I didn't know if I was going to tell this story or not. So the spiritual warfare is real. Um, and it's funny because I've read a lot of books on this. So whether it's the Unseen Realm or Chip Ingram's Invisible War, I mean, I've read stuff a lot where you see people interacting the spiritual realm, and there's a battle raging right now. And I always read about that, and I believed it in my head. Um, I didn't ever know if it was real because I hadn't like encountered it directly until this April. I encountered it directly. So if you want to go there, I'll go. I'll tell the story.
I would love to hear it. Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind telling it, you always have the right to
I'll
say pass, but if you're
no, I'll
comfortable,
tell
yeah.
it. I'll tell it. It was a night in April, and I won't go through all the details, but uh, I'd woke up in the middle of the night, like 3 in the morning, and just to give you an idea of what we were doing at that time, Tithe Foundation had just had its largest grant night. We had just had our largest gathering. We were gathering more and more business leaders. We had tons of applications for that. Some of the stuff that we had sent the money out to go do is into some of the darkest places in our city. So we had just given a larger grant to go hire a teacher for a children's home here that is the only home in Ohio that's rescuing girls that are minors out of sex trafficking. These are girls that are 11, 12, 13 years old, like pulling them out. And it's the stories will break your heart. So I'm going to save us all that. But some of the stuff that we were doing was pretty crazy. I had also just helped my barber. I'm a co-founder of 12/7 Barbershop. So
Okay.
completely unrelated to mortgage. I don't work in the barbershop. I just helped them get it rolling. And it's after Luke 12:7, where Jesus says, indeed, the very hairs in your head are all numbered. All the barbers in our shop are Christian. They're ministering to people right there in their chair. We got 6 great barbers who are sharing the gospel every single day
Oh, that's
with people that
cool.
are coming into the shop. Uh, we had just launched this like 2 weeks prior. So, I mean, we're taking ground from the enemy little by little by little. And so I wake up at like 3 in the morning, and it's like this very odd presence that was in the room. I could just sense it. I never felt it before like that. And I remember just like rolling over and praying to myself, thinking it would go away. It wouldn't. And I couldn't shake it. So I don't know what the heck I was thinking here. But this is what I said out loud. I said, um, I go, I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. And in the name of Jesus, I command you to show yourself. And when I said that, uh, immediately there was this crazy pressure on my body, like on my chest. Every hair on my entire body was standing up straight, every single hair. And my wife's to the left of me. And in this ear, it was like this thing's face was right here. And it was this audible growl, like this nasty guttural growl. And I can still hear it. And I couldn't get any words out. Like I was, like my breath had been taken away. And so finally, I got enough, like, I don't know, like enough wits about me to like be able to say it out loud. And out loud, I just said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to the foot of the cross, leave now. And it was gone. Growl done. Room back to normal. Everything back to normal. And my wife heard me and she was like, what was that? And I was like, I think I just cast something out of here. But there was something here to menace us. And I don't know what it was. So we prayed together, and I was able to go back to sleep that night. But that was the only time I've had a direct encounter with the spiritual realm. And
Wow.
I, I don't know if that was just because we were taking ground and it was meant to intimidate. I don't know what the purpose of it was. I've had other like indirect things that are happening where you can kind of sense that everything that's going on around you is not as it seems. That there's
Hmm.
more to it than this.
Yeah.
But that was the only direct encounter I've ever had, and it was as real as we're talking right now. So
Wow.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
when people don't believe it, it's like no, no, no. This world is not what we're living for. This is an opportunity. This is a gift, but there's far more to us, and there's far more to our life and our existence than what meets the eye. this
Right.
this life is not just about make money, buy a house, buy a car, retire someday, play some golf, and die. Like that's not what's going on here. So anybody that's
Yeah.
still living that way, I would encourage them to look a little deeper.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's wow. I with what I do, I hear a lot of stories, and
Mm-hmm.
I can always tell when someone's like really, really diving deep and telling me the truth because
Yeah.
I feel the same stuff. And as you're sitting there telling me that, I mean, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. I'm feeling every word coming out of you.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Mark, that was amazing. It really was. Good for
Yeah.
you
It
to
was
be able
weird.
to think through that like that.
Well, I called, I got lucky. So before that happened, um, there's a couple like podcasts and things that I've listened to. Like, I probably wouldn't have known what to do 5 years ago if that happened to me, but that wouldn't have happened to me 5 years ago because I wasn't challenging. I
Right.
wasn't storming the gates of hell in any way.
You
I
weren't a
wasn't a
threat.
challenge.
You were not a
No,
threat back
zero.
then. Yeah.
Correct. But it was funny. I called a pastor mentor of mine who's actually baptized me. That picture's on the back wall too. And when I told him, he was like, "Man, that's awesome." And I was like, "What's so awesome about that?" He's like, "This is like a spiritual marker in your life that you will always remember." He's like, "But the best thing about it was Jesus was totally in charge that whole time." It's like that, whatever it was in your room, listened. You said, "Show yourself." He did. You commanded him out to the foot of the cross and he left. Like Jesus is totally in charge. And you just got to, like, for yourself, confirm that fact. So that's been something I carry with me now
Hmm.
because I know who's in charge. I know who I'm living for. And we don't really have anything to fear. Yeah, they can seem scary and they can do stuff like that, but I mean they're not in charge. So
Right.
I got to see that for myself, which I think was a gift from God.
That's the type of thing where it's almost the literal armor of God, that
Mm-hmm.
you strap on and you say those words. That's amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
Power to you and wow. The biggest point to take away from that is that you became a threat.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
became a threat. When because that's something that happens a lot, I think, with folks is they look at somebody else. Why does this person have such an easy life?
Hmm.
They're not believing in God. They're just sitting there. Everything's going well for them, right? And they don't realize that the devil's making that happen to keep them on the sideline.
Yeah.
And the devil only puts obstacles in your path when he's trying to stop you and when you're a threat.
Yeah.
So, brother, congratulations on being deemed a threat.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Because
Wow,
man,
that's a
that's
way.
something.
Gee, thanks.
You're doing something right if they're trying to stop you from doing it. I mean, it's powerful what you're doing.
Yeah,
That's just amazing.
when I read these stories in the Bible, and it's like you look at the guys who we all revere now, who were willing to take risks and go the lengths that they did for the gospel. None of them really had an easy life. It looked like it was pretty tough.
Right.
But man, I'd rather do that and watch God move and be able to witness some of the majesty that he brings to the table and some of the cool things that you get to be a part of by partnering with God than just playing it safe and doing my own little thing. So it's I wouldn't have said that years ago, uh, but now having been a part of some of it and seeing the things that he's done that I could not have predicted because we were willing to step out in faith, even when it was scary, even when the doubt and the fear were totally present. We were willing to lean on our faith and go do some things that we weren't quite sure how it was going to work out. Getting to watch God do some just amazing things. It does. It grows your faith and it creates a new desire on how you want to live your life. So one thing I would tell anybody that's listening to this is if you are feeling pulled by the Holy Spirit, and we just talked about how like the spiritual realm is real. Well, like the good side's real too. So if you're feeling pulled by the Holy Spirit to go do a particular thing and you just can't shake it, but it looks real scary, like if you're afraid of it, or if you have doubts on how it's going to work or what people are going to think or whatever it is, that's a good sign because fear and doubt are stepping stones to grow your faith. Anything that God is pulling you to, he's usually not going to give you total assurance on how it's all going to work out. It's going to require a step of faith, but he loves that. He loves when you're willing to overcome your fear and your doubts and you're taking that step anyway.
Yeah.
So if you can't shake it and it doesn't go away and that Holy Spirit is just like just keeps poking you with it, just go for it.
Nice. Nice. I was going to ask you for some parting words. That
Yeah.
that was great, and I love that. I really applaud everything that you're doing. I love your perspective on all of it, and your role. Mark, you really are one of the lions out there, man. Thank you on behalf of all of us everywhere for being one of those lions and taking on that responsibility. That's really huge.
Yeah, no, not a problem. All glory to God and Jesus,
You
because
got it.
yeah, that's where the glory is due.
You got it. How can people reach you, brother?
Yeah, real easy. MarkGreaves.com is my website if they want to see some of the things that we're doing and link off to. We'll actually have a revamped site coming here in the next month or so that'll have links to the books and then other ways you can get in touch. TitheLending.com. If you're interested in doing a mortgage, we're licensed in 7 states. We would love to, be your next lending option. And then for Tithe Foundation, if you're a nonprofit, who wants to potentially apply for a grant for funding or a business partner who wants to link up and join our out there, it's just www.tithe.foundation. So
Okay.
that's the URL.
Tithe.foundation. All right. And
That's
is
right.
it is that a .com or a .co or just
Nope.
Tithe.foundation?
Apparently they do all these dot different things now. So yeah, tithe.foundation is the actual website.
That's it. All right. Just want to make sure
Yeah.
we got it right there. So, all right, perfect. We'll make sure all that stuff is in the show notes. And once again, Mark, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your story, all of your stories, which I know made an impact with people, and for doing what you're doing. It's amazing, and I cannot wait to see how you grow, brother.
Yeah. My pleasure.
You got it, folks. My goodness, uh, it is time. It's time to wake up the lions. Uh, More than that, it's time for you to do like Mark has done and take your place amongst your brothers and your sisters and let them hear you roar. The world is ready. You're ready. You just have to believe it.